Sometimes fate writes the most beautiful stories in the most unexpected moments. Picture this, a grand ballroom filled with London's elite, crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across marble floors, and two hearts about to collide in ways neither could have imagined. This is the story of how a single stumble became the first step toward forever, how embarrassment transformed into enchantment, and how William discovered that sometimes the most precious things come to you when you're not even looking for them. What happens when a future queen trips and falls directly into the arms of her destiny? This is that story, raw, real, and absolutely unforgettable. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Kate Middleton's modest flat in Chelsea, casting long golden rays across the hardwood floors she had scrubbed herself just days before. She stood before her small wardrobe, fingers tracing the fabric of the few elegant dresses hanging inside. Tonight wasn't just any night. Tonight was the annual Royal Geographic Society charity banquet, and somehow, through a series of fortunate events and her friend Isabella's connections, she had secured an invitation to one of London's most exclusive social gatherings. Kate had grown up in Berkshire, where her parents Michael and Carol had built their party supply business from the ground up. The Middleton family wasn't wealthy by aristocratic standards, but they had worked hard to provide their children with good educations and opportunities. Kate's childhood had been filled with simple pleasures, family holidays in the Lake District, weekend cricket matches where she cheered for her father's local team, and evenings spent helping her mother organize party decorations in their garage-turned workshop. She had always been the responsible one, the daughter who studied hard at Marlborough College, who chose her friends carefully, and who never forgot to call her grandmother every Sunday. Her parents had sacrificed much to send her to university at St. Andrews, where she pursued art history with genuine passion, not because it would lead to a prestigious career, but because she truly loved learning about the stories behind great paintings and sculptures. At 21, Kate was working part-time at Jigsaw, a contemporary clothing store in London, while considering her next steps. She enjoyed the work more than she had expected. There was something satisfying about helping women find clothes that made them feel confident and beautiful. Her manager, Belle Robinson, had become something of a mentor, teaching Kate about business, fashion, and navigating London's complex social landscape. The invitation to tonight's banquet had arrived through Isabella, a friend from St. Andrews whose family moved in circles Kate had only read about in magazines. Isabella's father was a prominent banker who sat on several charity boards, and her mother organized fundraising events for causes ranging from children's hospitals to wildlife conservation. When Isabella mentioned that she had an extra ticket to the Royal Geographic Society event, Kate's first instinct was to decline. She didn't belong in such rarefied company. But Isabella had insisted. "Kate, you spend too much time hiding in that flat of yours. You're brilliant, you're beautiful, and you deserve to experience something extraordinary. Besides, it's for charity. You'll be helping raise money for environmental conservation projects around the world." Now, standing before her modest collection of dresses, Kate wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The elegant black dress she had purchased for her university formal seemed appropriate. But would it be enough for tonight's gathering? She knew that many of the women attending would be wearing designer gowns that cost more than Kate earned in several months. She selected the black dress, simple but well-tailored, with a modest neckline and a hemline that fell just below her knees. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it was elegant in its simplicity. Her mother had always taught her that confidence and good posture were worth more than any designer label. Kate paired the dress with the small pearl earrings her grandmother had given her for her 18th birthday and a delicate silver necklace that had been a graduation gift from her parents. As she applied her makeup carefully in the small mirror above her bathroom sink, Kate thought about her goals for the evening. She wasn't looking for romance or social advancement. She simply wanted to represent herself and her family well, to learn something new about the charity's work, and perhaps to make a meaningful connection or two with people who shared her interests in art and conservation. The taxi ride to the venue gave her time to review what Isabella had told her about tonight's event. The Royal Geographic Society's annual banquet brought together some of Britain's most influential families, along with prominent figures from politics, business, and academia. The evening would feature a silent auction, presentations about the Society's conservation work in remote corners of the world, and opportunities for guests to pledge support for upcoming expeditions. Kate had always been fascinated by stories of exploration and discovery. As a child, She had devoured books about Victorian adventurers who had mapped uncharted territories and documented exotic wildlife. The idea of contributing, even in a small way, to modern conservation efforts appealed to her sense of purpose. When the taxi pulled up to the imposing Georgian building that housed the Royal Geographic Society, Kate felt her heart rate quicken. The entrance was illuminated by elegant lanterns, and a red carpet led up the stone steps to massive wooden doors. Well-dressed guests were arriving in luxury cars and taxis, the women gliding effortlessly in their evening gowns, the men sophisticated in their black tie attire. Kate paid the taxi driver and took a deep breath. She reminded herself of her mother's advice. Hold your head high, be genuinely interested in others, and remember that kindness is the most elegant accessory you can wear. With this in mind, she approached the entrance, her invitation clutched in her slightly trembling hand. The security guard, a distinguished gentleman with kind eyes, examined her invitation briefly before greeting her with a warm smile. Good evening, Miss Middleton. Welcome to the Royal Geographic Society. The reception is through the main hall, and the dining room is on the first floor. Please enjoy your evening. Kate stepped into the main hall and immediately felt as though she had entered another world. The space was magnificent, with soaring ceilings decorated with intricate moldings, walls lined with ancient maps and portraits of famous explorers, and display cases containing artifacts from expeditions to the far corners of the earth. The floors were polished marble, reflecting the light from crystal chandeliers that hung like glittering constellations above the crowd. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and began to wander through the reception area, genuinely fascinated by the exhibits. Here was a compass used by Ernest Shackleton during his Antarctic expedition. There, a collection of pressed flowers gathered by Victorian botanists in the Amazon rainforest. Each item told a story of human curiosity and courage that resonated deeply with Kate's own sense of adventure. Extraordinary collection, isn't it? A voice said beside her. Kate turned to find an elderly gentleman with twinkling eyes and a magnificent white mustache studying the same display case. He was examining a set of navigation instruments with obvious expertise. It really is, Kate replied. I was just thinking about the courage it must have taken to venture into completely unknown territories with such basic equipment. Indeed, though I suspect the real courage lay not in facing physical dangers, but in maintaining hope when everything seemed impossible. He extended his hand. Professor James Whitfield. I had the privilege of leading several expeditions to Patagonia in my younger days. Kate Middleton. What an honor to meet you, Professor. I can't imagine what it must have been like to explore regions that had never been mapped. Their conversation flowed naturally as Professor Whitfield shared stories of his adventures, and Kate found herself completely absorbed in his tales of discovering new species of birds in remote mountain valleys and mapping previously unknown river systems. She had always possessed a gift for making others feel heard and valued, asking thoughtful questions that encouraged them to share their most meaningful experiences. You have the curiosity of a natural explorer, Miss Middleton, Professor Whitfield observed. Have you considered applying for one of our research grants? We're always looking for bright young people to assist with documentation and conservation work. Before Kate could respond, Isabella appeared at her elbow, slightly breathless and beautifully flushed with excitement. Kate, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. You simply must come with me. I want to introduce you to some fascinating people. Kate excused herself politely from Professor Whitfield, who pressed his card into her hand with a conspiratorial wink. Do consider what I said, my dear. The world needs more people who appreciate both beauty and adventure. Isabella led Kate through the crowd toward a group of young people gathered near the bar. That's Lord Pemberton's son, Charles, and the blonde girl is Lady Sarah Spencer. They're absolutely lovely. And that tall fellow with the dark hair is Prince William. He's actually quite normal once you get past all the protocol nonsense. Kate's stomach dropped. Prince William. She had known, intellectually, that members of the royal family might attend such an event, but somehow she hadn't quite believed it would really happen. Now, seeing him in person, tall, handsome, apparently engaged in an animated conversation about rugby with the other guests, the reality of the situation hit her. This wasn't just a charity banquet. This was an event where she might actually interact with the future King of England. The black dress that had seemed perfectly appropriate an hour ago now felt woefully inadequate. Her small flat, her part-time job, her ordinary middle-class background, everything about her life suddenly seemed impossibly humble. But Before she could make an excuse to escape to the ladies' room and compose herself, Isabella was making introductions. The group welcomed her warmly, and Kate found herself drawn into their conversation about travel, university experiences, and weekend plans. Prince William was indeed surprisingly normal, laughing at the same jokes that amused everyone else, expressing genuine interest in Kate's studies, and showing no signs of the aloof formality she had expected. "Isabella tells me you're studying art history at St. Andrews," he said during a brief lull in the conversation. "That must be fascinating. Are you focusing on any particular period?" "Renaissance and Baroque, primarily," Kate replied, grateful to be discussing a subject she knew well. "I'm particularly interested in how artists used symbolism to communicate ideas that might have been dangerous to express openly. Like political dissent disguised as religious allegory?" "Exactly. Or social commentary hidden in seemingly innocent domestic scenes." Kate was surprised by how easily the conversation flowed. Prince William seemed genuinely interested in her studies, asking thoughtful follow-up questions that demonstrated he was actually listening, not just making polite small talk. As the evening progressed, Kate began to relax. The other guests were friendly and inclusive, and she discovered that many of them shared her interests in conservation, travel, and social causes. Lord Pemberton's son Charles was passionate about sustainable farming practices on his family's estate in Scotland. Lady Sarah had spent a gap year working with a wildlife conservation project in Kenya. Even Prince William spoke knowledgeably about environmental challenges facing rural communities. When the dinner gong sounded, signaling that guests should make their way to the dining room, Kate realized she had been enjoying herself far more than she had anticipated. The nervousness that had plagued her earlier in the evening had been replaced by genuine engagement with the people around her and excitement about the conservation work they would learn about during dinner. The dining room was even more spectacular than the reception area, with long tables set with gleaming silver, crystal glasses that caught and reflected the candlelight, and elaborate floral centerpieces featuring exotic orchids and tropical plants. Kate found her place card at a table near the center of the room, positioned between Professor Whitfield and a woman introduced as Dr. Margaret Foster, a marine biologist who had spent the past 5 years studying coral reef systems in the Pacific. As she made her way to her seat, Kate caught sight of Prince William being escorted to the head table, where he would be seated with the evening's honored guests and major donors. Their eyes met briefly across the room, and he offered a friendly smile and a small wave before taking his place. Kate settled into her chair, feeling more confident than she had all evening. She had navigated the reception successfully, made several interesting new acquaintances, and managed to have a perfectly normal conversation with a member of the royal family. The evening was proceeding better than she had dared to hope. Dr. Foster proved to be a fascinating dinner companion, sharing stories of her underwater research and the urgent need for coral reef conservation. Kate found herself completely absorbed in learning about the complex ecosystems that existed beneath the ocean's surface and the innovative techniques scientists were developing to help damaged reefs recover. The first course was served with elegant efficiency, and Kate was pleased to discover that her table companions were as interested in hearing her thoughts as they were in sharing their own experiences. The conversation flowed from marine conservation to art restoration techniques, from travel adventures to philosophical questions about humanity's relationship with the natural world. The main course arrived as the evening's keynote speaker, Sir David Richardson, began his presentation about the Society's latest expedition to document wildlife in the Amazon rainforest. Kate found herself completely captivated by the photographs and stories of rare species discovered in remote river tributaries, some of which had never been documented by scientists before. As Sir David described the urgent need for conservation funding to protect these fragile ecosystems, Kate felt a deep stirring of purpose. This was exactly the kind of meaningful work she wanted to support, even if her contribution could only be modest. She made a mental note to research volunteer opportunities with conservation organizations when she returned home. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause, and guests began moving freely between tables as the evening transitioned into a more social phase. Kate excused herself to visit the ladies' room, wanting a few minutes to process the inspiring presentation and perhaps touch up her lipstick. The ladies' room was as elegant as the rest of the venue, with marble countertops, gilt-framed mirrors, and small bouquets of fresh flowers placed throughout the space. Several other women were already there, and Kate couldn't help overhearing fragments of their conversation as she washed her hands. Did you see the Duchess of Marlborough's necklace? It must be worth more than most people's houses. I heard Prince William might be looking for someone to accompany him to his cousin's wedding next month. Apparently, his previous relationship didn't work out as expected. My mother thinks Lady Charlotte would be perfect for him. They've known each other since childhood, and she understands the expectations that come with royal duties. Kate focused on reapplying her lipstick, trying not to listen but unable to completely ignore the discussion happening just feet away from her. The women were clearly from the same social circles as Prince William, discussing him with the casual familiarity of people who had grown up in the same rarefied world. She thought about her own background, her parents' party supply business, her part-time job at a clothing store, her small flat in Chelsea. The contrast with the lives these women described couldn't be more stark. For a moment, she felt the familiar pang of insecurity that had plagued her earlier in the evening. But then, she remembered the genuine interest Prince William had shown in her studies, the way Professor Whitfield had encouraged her to consider applying for research opportunities, and the engaging conversations she had enjoyed throughout dinner. She might not come from an aristocratic family, but she had her own forms of value to offer: intellectual curiosity, genuine kindness, and a sincere interest in making a positive difference in the world. Kate returned to the dining room with renewed confidence, determined to make the most of the remaining evening. The silent auction tables had been set up along one wall, featuring an impressive array of donated items ranging from luxury vacation packages to original artwork by contemporary artists. She wandered among the displays, genuinely interested in learning about the various lots even though most were far beyond her modest budget. A weekend at a Scottish castle, a private tour of the Vatican museums, a sailing expedition in the Greek islands. Each item represented experiences that seemed impossibly glamorous to someone from her background. At the art section, she paused before a small watercolor painting of an English countryside scene. The artist had captured something ineffably peaceful about rolling green hills dotted with sheep, ancient stone walls meandering across the landscape, and a small cottage with smoke rising from its chimney. The starting bid was modest compared to the other lots, but still more than Kate could reasonably afford. "It's lovely, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. Kate turned to find Prince William studying the same painting, his hands clasped behind his back. "It reminds me of the countryside near Highgrove," he continued. "There's something about the way the light falls across those hills that captures exactly how it feels to walk through the fields early in the morning." "I was thinking the same thing," Kate replied. The artist really understood how landscape can evoke emotion, not just represent physical features. "Are you planning to bid on it?" Kate felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm afraid it's a bit beyond my budget. I'm here mainly to learn about the conservation work and show support for the cause." Prince William nodded thoughtfully. "The cause is certainly worthy. I've been following their work in Patagonia particularly closely. My father has a deep interest in environmental conservation, and he's taught me to appreciate how important it is to protect wild places before they disappear forever." They continued walking along the auction tables together, discussing various lots and the conservation projects they would support. Kate was struck by how knowledgeable Prince William was about environmental issues and how genuinely passionate he seemed about protecting endangered ecosystems. "Have you ever considered working in conservation yourself?" he asked as they paused before a display featuring photographs from the Society's recent expedition to document Arctic wildlife. "I've been thinking about it more seriously tonight," Kate admitted. Professor Whitfield mentioned research grant opportunities, and Dr. Foster described some fascinating marine conservation projects. "I've always loved nature, but I never considered that there might be career paths that would allow me to contribute to protection efforts. There's a growing need for people who can bridge the gap between scientific research and public engagement," Prince William observed. "Someone with your background in art history might be particularly valuable in developing educational programs or fundraising initiatives." Before Kate could respond, Isabella appeared beside them, slightly out of breath and wearing an expression of barely controlled panic. "Kate, thank goodness I found you. I've been looking everywhere. We have a bit of a situation." She glanced nervously at Prince William, clearly uncertain about speaking freely in his presence. "Please don't mind me," Prince William said graciously. "I should return to my own table anyway. Kate, it's been a pleasure talking with you this evening. I hope you'll seriously consider those conservation opportunities we discussed." He moved away with a polite nod, and Isabella immediately grabbed Kate's arm. "What's wrong?" Kate asked, alarmed by her friend's obvious distress. "It's my mother. She's had an accident at home. Nothing life-threatening, but she's broken her wrist, and Need someone to drive her to the hospital. My father is out of town, and I'm the only one available. Kate's heart went out to her friend. Mrs. Morrison had always been kind to her, treating her like a second daughter whenever she visited Isabella's family home. Of course you need to go. Is there anything I can do to help? That's just it. I hate to ask, but could you possibly stay and represent our family at the remainder of the evening? My father bought several auction lots, and someone needs to be here to complete the transactions. Also, there's a receiving line at the end where major donors are thanked personally by the society's leadership. It would be terribly rude for our family not to participate. Kate felt a moment of panic. The thought of navigating the rest of the evening alone, particularly the formal receiving line, seemed overwhelming. But Isabella was clearly distraught about her mother, and Kate couldn't bear to add to her friend's worries. Of course I'll stay. Don't give it another thought. Just go take care of your mother. Isabella squeezed her hand gratefully. You're an angel, Kate. I'll text you the details about which lots my father won, and I'll call you tomorrow to make sure everything went smoothly. Within minutes, Isabella had gathered her things and departed, leaving Kate standing alone in the elegant dining room surrounded by London's social elite. For a moment, the old feelings of insecurity threatened to overwhelm her. She was now representing the Morrison family at one of the season's most important charity events, with no safety net if she made a social blunder. But then, she reminded herself of the successful conversations she had already had throughout the evening. She had held her own with Professor Whitfield's academic expertise, engaged meaningfully with Dr. Foster's scientific research, and even managed a perfectly normal discussion with Prince William about art and conservation. Surely she could handle the remaining social obligations. Kate made her way to the auction results table to inquire about the Morrison family's winning bids. The efficient woman managing the transactions consulted her list and informed Kate that Mr. Morrison had successfully purchased 3 items: a wine-tasting experience in Tuscany, a signed first edition of a book about Antarctic exploration, and the small watercolor painting Kate had admired earlier. The total comes to £8,000, the woman said matter-of-factly. Will you be paying by check this evening, or would you prefer us to send an invoice? Kate's eyes widened. £8,000 was more money than she earned in an entire year at Jigsaw. The casual way the transaction was discussed reminded her once again of the vast difference between her own financial situation and that of the families attending tonight's event. An invoice would be perfect, she managed to say, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. Please send it to Mr. Morrison at his usual address. As the evening drew toward its conclusion, guests began forming the receiving line that Isabella had mentioned. Kate found herself in a queue of elegantly dressed couples and families, all waiting to be personally thanked by the society's president and other distinguished guests for their generous support. The line moved slowly, giving Kate time to observe the gracious interactions taking place ahead of her. Each donor was greeted warmly, their specific contributions acknowledged, and their ongoing support solicited for future projects. She rehearsed mentally how she would explain that she was representing the Morrison family and convey their regrets about Mrs. Morrison's accident. As she drew closer to the front of the line, Kate noticed that Prince William had joined the receiving line party, positioned near the society's president to help thank major donors personally. Her stomach fluttered nervously as she realized she would need to interact with him again, this time in a more formal setting with other people observing their exchange. When her turn finally arrived, Kate approached the society's president with what she hoped was appropriate confidence and grace. She explained about representing the Morrison family and conveyed their regrets about Mrs. Morrison's emergency, along with their continued enthusiasm for the society's important work. How thoughtful of the Morrisons to send such a charming representative, the president replied warmly. Please give Mrs. Morrison our best wishes for a speedy recovery. Prince William stepped forward as Kate prepared to move on. Miss Middleton, what a pleasant surprise to see you again. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Society's conservation work this evening. Very much so, Your Royal Highness. It's been an inspiring evening. Kate was pleased that her voice sounded steady despite her nervousness. I was just telling Professor Whitfield about your interest in conservation work. He mentioned that he had spoken with you earlier about research opportunities. Before Kate could respond, she felt someone bump against her from behind. The guest immediately following her in line had apparently tripped slightly on the marble floor, and the small collision caused Kate to step forward unexpectedly. Her heel caught in the hem of her dress, and suddenly, she was falling forward, directly toward Prince William. Time seemed to slow as Kate realized what was happening. She was about to stumble into the future King of England in front of dozens of distinguished guests, photographers, and society officials. This was exactly the kind of mortifying social disaster she had feared all evening, the moment that would confirm her worst suspicions about not belonging in such refined company. But instead of the humiliating crash she expected, Kate found herself caught securely in Prince William's arms. He had reacted with impressive speed and athleticism, stepping forward to catch her before she could fall completely. For a moment, they were frozen in an unexpectedly intimate pose, her hands pressed against his chest, his arms encircling her waist, their faces just inches apart. The receiving line had paused, and Kate was acutely aware of the attention focused on them. But Prince William's expression was kind rather than annoyed, concerned rather than embarrassed. His eyes met hers with a warmth that made her forget momentarily about their audience. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his voice gentle with genuine concern. Kate felt as though the breath had been knocked out of her, and not entirely because of the near fall. Being held so close to Prince William, seeing the kindness in his eyes, feeling the strength of his arms supporting her, it was overwhelming in ways she hadn't anticipated. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, mortified by the scene she had inadvertently created. "I can't believe I just did that." "Don't apologize," Prince William replied, helping her regain her balance while maintaining a steadying hand on her arm. "These floors can be treacherous in evening shoes. Are you hurt at all?" Kate shook her head, still struggling to process what had just happened. The other guests in line were smiling indulgently, clearly charmed by the romantic nature of the scene they had just witnessed. Rather than the social disaster she had feared, the moment seemed to have struck observers as endearingly romantic. "Perhaps we should make sure you're steady before you continue," Prince William suggested, guiding Kate slightly to the side of the receiving line. "Can I get you some water or a place to sit for a moment?" The society's president, clearly experienced in managing unexpected social situations, smoothly directed the receiving line to continue while Prince William attended to Kate's welfare. Professor Whitfield, who had observed the incident from nearby, approached with a kind smile. "My dear, are you quite well?" That was quite a graceful recovery, thanks to His Royal Highness's quick reflexes. Kate felt herself blushing furiously. "I'm perfectly fine, thank you. Just embarrassed by my clumsiness." "Nonsense," Prince William interjected. "It could have happened to anyone. In fact, I remember a similar incident at my cousin's wedding where the best man actually did fall during the receiving line. Made for quite memorable photographs." His easy humor helped Kate relax, and she realized that her mortification was gradually being replaced by a different kind of nervousness entirely. The way Prince William was looking at her, the protective care he was showing, the reluctance he seemed to feel about ending their interaction, it all suggested something beyond mere politeness. "I should let you get back to your duties," Kate said finally, aware that other guests were likely waiting to speak with him. "Actually, the formal portions of the evening are essentially concluded," Prince William replied. "I was wondering if you might like to see some of the society's historical exhibits that aren't usually open to the public. Since you're interested in art and conservation, I thought you might appreciate the private collection in the library." Kate's heart skipped. Was Prince William actually asking to spend more time with her, after she had literally fallen into his arms in front of half of London's high society? "I would love that," she heard herself saying, surprising herself with her boldness. As Prince William guided her away from the receiving line toward a discreet door at the side of the main hall, Kate caught sight of her reflection in one of the gilt-framed mirrors lining the wall. Her hair was slightly disheveled from the near fall. Her cheeks were flushed with a combination of embarrassment and excitement, and her eyes were bright with an animation she had never seen in herself before. For the first time all evening, she looked like someone who truly belonged in this elegant setting. Not because of her dress or her background, but because of the genuine happiness radiating from her face. Whatever was happening between her and Prince William, it felt natural and right in a way that surprised her. As they walked together toward the private areas of the building, Kate realized that her stumble hadn't been the social disaster she had feared. Instead, it had created an opportunity for something she never could have anticipated, a chance to connect with someone remarkable in an entirely authentic way. The evening that had begun with such nervousness and uncertainty was transforming into something magical, and Kate found herself curious to see where this unexpected path might lead. Prince William led Kate through a series of corridors lined with portraits of distinguished explorers and maps of territories they had charted in centuries past. The private areas of the Royal Geographic Society building were even more magnificent than the public spaces, with rich wood paneling, Persian rugs that had probably witnessed conversations between famous adventurers, and display cases containing artifacts from expeditions that had shaped human understanding of the world. Most guests never see this part of the building, Prince William explained as they walked. But since you seem genuinely interested in the conservation work rather than just the social aspects of the evening, I thought you might appreciate some of the historical context behind the Society's mission. Kate felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. He had been observing her throughout the evening, noticing her sincere engagement with the educational aspects of the event. That level of attention felt both flattering and slightly overwhelming. They paused before a glass case containing navigation instruments used by Captain James Cook during his Pacific voyages. The brass sextant and leather-bound logbooks looked impossibly delicate, yet they had survived ocean storms and tropical heat to help expand humanity's knowledge of the world. It's extraordinary to think about the courage required to sail into completely unknown waters, Kate said, studying the instruments carefully. No satellite navigation, no radio contact, no way to call for help if something went wrong. My grandmother has always been fascinated by exploration stories, Prince William replied. She used to tell me tales about Victorian adventurers when I was small, and I think that's where my interest in conservation began. The idea that there are still places on Earth that need protection, species that haven't been fully studied, ecosystems that could disappear before we even understand them properly. Kate turned to look at him, struck by the genuine passion in his voice. This wasn't polite small talk or rehearsed remarks about royal duties. Prince William was sharing something personal, revealing his authentic interests and concerns. Do you think you'll be able to pursue conservation work directly, or will royal obligations make that impossible? She asked, then, immediately worried that the question was too personal. But Prince William didn't seem offended by her curiosity. That's something I think about often, actually. There are ways to use royal patronage to support important causes, but I also want to be directly involved in meaningful work, not just ceremonial appearances. I'm hoping to find ways to combine duty with genuine purpose. They continued walking through the private collection, their conversation flowing naturally from conservation philosophy to travel experiences to books they had enjoyed. Kate found herself completely at ease, forgetting about royal protocol and social hierarchy as they discovered shared interests and similar perspectives on various topics. In the Society's private library, Prince William showed Kate first editions of books by famous explorers, including a copy of Ernest Shackleton's personal account of his Antarctic expedition. The margins were filled with handwritten notes, and several pages showed water stains from the harsh conditions Shackleton had endured while writing. He actually wrote some of these passages while stranded on the ice for months, Prince William explained, carefully turning the fragile pages. Imagine trying to maintain hope and document your experiences when survival itself seemed impossible. Kate studied the faded ink and careful handwriting, moved by the direct connection to such an extraordinary human experience. There's something profound about touching the same pages that someone touched in such extreme circumstances. It makes history feel immediate and personal rather than distant and academic. Exactly. That's why I wanted to show you this collection. You understand that artifacts aren't just museum pieces, they're connections to real human courage and determination. As Prince William closed the book carefully and returned it to its protective case, Kate became aware of how quiet the library had become. The sounds of the banquet, conversations, laughter, musical entertainment seemed very far away. They were alone in this intimate space surrounded by centuries of exploration history, and the atmosphere felt charged with possibility. I should probably get back, Kate said reluctantly, aware that she had already stayed much longer than appropriate. You must have other obligations, and I don't want to monopolize your evening. Actually, the formal requirements ended with the receiving line, Prince William replied. I'm free to spend the rest of the evening however I choose, and I can't think of anything I'd rather do than continue our conversation. The directness of his statement caught Kate off guard. Prince William wasn't just being polite. He was expressing a genuine preference for her company over whatever other social opportunities the evening might offer. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. In that case, I'd love to continue talking, she replied, surprised by her own boldness. They settled into comfortable leather chairs beside tall windows that overlooked the Society's private garden. Gas lamps illuminated pathways between carefully maintained flower beds and specimen trees collected from various continents. The setting felt like something from a romantic novel, elegant and intimate without being inappropriately isolated. Tell me about your family, Prince William said, genuinely curious. Isabella mentioned that your parents have a business in Berkshire? Kate felt a moment of nervousness, aware that her middle-class background was about to be fully revealed. But Prince William's expression was openly interested, not judgmental, so she decided to be completely honest. My father, Michael, and Mother Carol started a party supply business called Party Pieces when I was young. They began by making and selling party bags from our kitchen table and gradually built it into a proper company. It's not glamorous work, but they're incredibly proud of what they've accomplished, and they've always emphasized that honest work is dignified regardless of how others might perceive it. That sounds remarkable, Prince William said, and his tone suggested he meant it. Building a successful business from nothing requires tremendous determination and creativity. What kind of party supplies do they specialize in? Kate relaxed as she described her parents' business, explaining how they had identified a market need for high-quality, affordable party decorations and had worked tirelessly to build relationships with suppliers and customers. Prince William asked thoughtful questions about business strategy and seemed genuinely impressed by her parents' entrepreneurial success. My mother always jokes that she became an expert in making children's birthday parties magical because she wanted to give my siblings and me wonderful celebrations even when money was tight, Kate continued. Now she gets to help other families create special memories, which gives her tremendous satisfaction. Family celebrations are important, Prince William agreed. Some of my happiest childhood memories involve relatively simple gatherings at Balmoral or Sandringham. Everyone together, good food, games, conversations that lasted late into the evening. The elaborate state occasions are part of duty, but intimate family time is what really matters. Kate was struck by how wistful he sounded when describing family gatherings. She realized that despite his privileged upbringing, Prince William had experienced the loss of his mother at a young age and lived with constant public scrutiny that made simple pleasures complicated. Do you feel like you have enough privacy for normal family experiences? She asked gently. Prince William considered the question carefully. It's complicated. There are wonderful privileges that come with my position, access to incredible people and places, opportunities to support causes I care about, resources to make a positive difference. But there are also sacrifices. Simple things like going to a movie or having dinner at a restaurant require extensive security arrangements. Friendships have to be carefully evaluated to ensure people's motives are genuine. Even conversations like this one will probably be reported in tomorrow's newspapers. The mention of press attention made Kate's stomach drop. She hadn't considered that her presence at tonight's event, much less her extended conversation with Prince William, might attract media notice. Her life had always been beautifully private and ordinary. The thought of photographers and newspaper articles felt overwhelming. Prince William must have noticed her expression because he quickly reassured her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to worry you. The press tends to focus on official events and confirmed relationships. A chance meeting at a charity banquet isn't likely to generate significant attention, especially since we're simply having a conversation about shared interests. But even as he spoke those words, Kate sensed that he wasn't entirely convinced of their truth. There had been something meaningful in their interaction throughout the evening, a connection that went beyond polite social exchange. If she could feel it, surely others might have noticed as well. Have you always known that your personal life would be subject to public scrutiny? She asked, curious about how someone navigates growing up with such unusual circumstances. To some extent, yes. But the reality didn't fully hit me until I was older and began to understand how much my choices affect not just my own life, but my family and the institution itself. It's a responsibility I take seriously, but it can also feel isolating sometimes. Kate heard the loneliness beneath his words and felt a surge of empathy. She had always taken for granted her ability to make personal choices without considering their impact on anyone beyond her immediate family. The weight of constant public responsibility seemed overwhelming. But tonight has been different, Prince William continued, his voice becoming more personal. Talking with you feels natural and unguarded in a way that's rare for me. You're interested in ideas and causes rather than status or connection. That's refreshing. Kate felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. I could say the same thing about you. I expected someone more formal and distant, but you're genuinely passionate about conservation work and surprisingly down-to-earth about everything else. Surprisingly down-to-earth? Prince William laughed. I'm not sure if that's flattering or insulting. Definitely flattering, Kate assured him, laughing as well. I just meant that your position could easily make someone arrogant or disconnected from ordinary concerns. But you seem to have maintained perspective about what really matters. Their conversation continued as the evening grew later, covering topics from books they had enjoyed to places they hoped to travel, to philosophical questions about duty versus personal fulfillment. Kate found herself sharing thoughts and dreams she rarely discussed with anyone, while Prince William revealed aspects of his personality that seemed far removed from his public image. When Prince William glanced at his watch and realized how late it had become, both of them seemed surprised by how quickly the time had passed. I can't believe we've been talking for nearly 2 hours, he said. It feels like we just sat down. Kate felt a pang of disappointment at the evening's approaching end. I should probably arrange transportation home. I imagine most of the other guests have already left. Actually, would you allow me to have my driver take you home? It's the least I can do after monopolizing your entire evening. The offer was clearly well-intentioned, but Kate hesitated. Arriving at her modest flat in Chelsea in a royal car seemed like it might attract exactly the kind of attention Prince William had suggested they were unlikely to receive. That's incredibly kind, but I think a taxi would be more appropriate. I live in a rather ordinary neighborhood where a royal driver might cause quite a stir. Prince William nodded understandingly. Of course, but at least let me arrange the taxi and ensure you get home safely. As they made their way back through the society's corridors toward the main entrance, Kate felt a mixture of elation and melancholy. The evening had exceeded her wildest expectations, providing not just an introduction to important conservation work, but also a connection with someone truly remarkable. Yet she was realistic enough to understand that tonight would likely be an isolated experience rather than the beginning of an ongoing relationship. Prince William's life was governed by duties and expectations that didn't include romantic involvement with middle-class women from Berkshire, no matter how pleasant their conversations might be. Kate was grateful for the magical few hours they had shared, but she didn't want to develop unrealistic expectations that would only lead to disappointment. At the building's entrance, Prince William arranged for a taxi while Kate retrieved her coat from the coat check. The night air was crisp and clear, with stars visible despite London's glow. The city seemed peaceful and full of possibilities. Thank you for an extraordinary evening, Kate said as the taxi pulled up to the curb. I learned more about conservation work than I ever expected, and I genuinely enjoyed our conversations. The pleasure was entirely mine, Prince William replied. I hope you'll seriously consider those research opportunities Professor Whitfield mentioned. And Kate, he paused, seeming to wrestle with whether to say something more. Yes, I hope this won't be the last time we have a chance to talk. I know my circumstances are complicated, but I'd very much like to see you again. Kate's heart raced. Prince William was expressing interest in continuing their connection, despite all the practical obstacles such a relationship would face. The possibilities seemed both wonderful and terrifying. I'd like that too, she replied honestly. Prince William smiled, the expression transforming his face with genuine happiness. I'll find a way to contact you through Isabella, if that's all right. Perhaps we could have dinner somewhere quieter where we could continue our conversation about art and conservation. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, Kate watched Prince William through the rear window until the building disappeared from view. She leaned back against the seat, still processing everything that had happened. What had begun as a simple charity banquet had somehow transformed into the most memorable evening of her life. The stumble that had embarrassed her so thoroughly had actually created an opportunity for authentic connection with someone she never could have imagined meeting, much less having an extended conversation with. Prince William had caught her when she fell, both literally and metaphorically, and what had followed felt like the beginning of something significant. As the taxi wound through London's quiet streets toward her flat in Chelsea, Kate allowed herself to imagine what might happen next. Could a relationship between them actually work, given the vast differences in their backgrounds and circumstances? Or was she setting herself up for heartbreak by believing that tonight's magic could translate into something lasting? Only time would tell, but for now, Kate was content to savor the memory of an evening when everything had changed in the most unexpected way possible. 3 days passed before Kate heard anything from Prince William. She had tried to maintain her normal routine, working her shifts at Jigsaw, meeting friends for coffee, helping her flatmate Sarah with her job applications, but found herself constantly distracted by memories of their conversation at the Royal Geographic Society. Every time the phone rang or she received a text message, her heart would skip, wondering if Prince William had found a way to contact her as promised. On Thursday morning, Isabella called with an update about her mother's recovery and profuse thanks for Kate's representation of the family at the banquet's conclusion. Mother is doing much better, though she's terribly frustrated about having her wrist in a cast. She keeps trying to arrange flowers with one hand and getting cross when they don't cooperate. Isabella laughed. But, Kate, I have to ask, what exactly happened between you and Prince William after I left? The photographs in today's society pages show you two looking quite cozy during the receiving line. Kate's stomach dropped. Photographs? What photographs? Haven't you seen the papers? There's a lovely shot of him catching you when you stumbled, and you both look absolutely smitten. The caption reads something about a royal rescue. Prince William's gallant save creates banquet buzz. After hanging up with Isabella, Kate rushed to the nearest newsstand to see the coverage for herself. Sure enough, there in the society section of two different newspapers were photographs capturing the moment when Prince William had caught her mid-stumble. The images were actually quite beautiful, romantic, even, showing his strong arms supporting her, their faces close together, both of them gazing into each other's eyes with expressions that clearly suggested more than mere politeness. The accompanying articles were relatively brief and respectful, focusing on the charity event's success and noting Prince William's charming interaction with guests. But Kate's name was mentioned, along with her status as a recent St. Andrews graduate and representative of the Morrison family. Her previously private life had suddenly become part of the public record. That afternoon, while Kate was helping customers at Jigsaw, her manager Belle Robinson approached with an expression of barely contained curiosity. Kate, dear, I've just had the most extraordinary phone call. Someone claiming to represent Prince William's private office wants to speak with you about a personal matter. They've left a number for you to call back. Kate's hands trembled slightly as she dialed the number Belle had written down. A polite woman answered, confirmed Kate's identity through a series of security questions, and then connected her to a man who introduced himself as Jamie Lowther Pinkerton, Prince William's private secretary. Miss Middleton, His Royal Highness has asked me to extend an invitation for you to join him for dinner this Saturday evening, if you're available. Given the public nature of Tuesday's event, he thought it would be appropriate to arrange a more private setting for your next conversation. Kate struggled to find her voice. That's very kind of him. Where would this dinner take place? His Royal Highness has a small flat in London where he can entertain privately without the security complications that public restaurants present. I can arrange for a car to collect you at 7 o'clock, if that's convenient. After confirming the arrangement and providing her address, Kate hung up feeling simultaneously thrilled and terrified. Prince William had actually followed through on his suggestion that they meet again, and he was inviting her to his private residence for dinner. This was moving far beyond a chance encounter at a charity event into something that felt genuinely romantic. But the mention of security complications reminded her of the broader implications of whatever relationship might be developing between them. Prince William lived in a world where every decision had to be carefully considered for its potential public impact, where even a simple dinner required extensive planning and protection. Kate spent Friday evening shopping for an appropriate outfit, eventually settling on a simple navy dress that was elegant, but not too formal, professional, but still feminine. She wanted to look beautiful for Prince William, while also demonstrating that she understood the serious nature of their developing connection. Saturday afternoon arrived with unseasonable warmth, and Kate found herself pacing nervously around her flat as evening approached. She had told Sarah only that she had a dinner date, not mentioning Prince William's identity. The fewer people who knew about this relationship in its early stages, the better for everyone involved. At precisely 7 o'clock, a discreet black car pulled up outside Kate's building. The driver, a professional-looking man in a dark suit, greeted her politely and held the door as she slipped into the back seat. As they drove through London's evening traffic, Kate tried to calm her nerves by focusing on the conversations they might have and the questions she wanted to ask about his conservation work. Prince William's private flat was located in a converted Georgian building in a quiet residential area, far from the tourist sites and royal palaces that attracted constant attention. The building's entrance was elegant, but understated, with no visible security presence that might attract curiosity from neighbors or passersby. Prince William himself answered the door, dressed casually in khakis and a button-down shirt that made him look younger and more relaxed than he had appeared in formal evening wear. His smile was warm and slightly nervous, suggesting that he was feeling some of the same anticipation Kate had experienced. "Kate, I'm so glad you could come. Please, come in." The flat was beautifully appointed, but surprisingly normal in scale and decoration. Comfortable furniture, family photographs, books scattered on side tables, and artwork that suggested personal taste rather than formal interior design. This felt like a real home rather than an official residence. "This is lovely," Kate said, accepting the glass of wine Prince William offered. "Much more welcoming than I expected. I wanted you to see how I actually live when I'm not performing royal duties. The official residences are magnificent, but they can feel like museums sometimes. This place allows me to be more myself." Prince William had prepared dinner himself, a simple but delicious meal of roasted chicken, seasonal vegetables, and potatoes that reminded Kate of Sunday dinners at her family home. The gesture of cooking for her personally, rather than having staff prepare and serve the meal, felt intimate and thoughtful. As they ate, their conversation picked up naturally where it had ended Tuesday evening. Prince William asked about Kate's work at Jigsaw, her thoughts about potential career paths, and her family's reaction to her attendance at such a prestigious charity event. "I haven't actually told them about meeting you specifically," Kate admitted. "They know I attended the banquet and had a wonderful time, but I wanted to understand what this relationship might become before involving them in speculation about something that might not develop further." "That's very considerate," Prince William replied. "Though I should probably mention that my family is aware of our meeting and tonight's dinner. Given the press coverage from Tuesday, it seemed important to keep them informed about my social activities." Kate felt a flutter of nervousness. The royal family was aware of her existence and their developing relationship. That level of visibility felt overwhelming, but also suggested that Prince William was taking their connection seriously enough to involve his family in the conversation. "What did you tell them about me?" she asked. "The truth, that you're intelligent, genuine, and interested in causes I care about. That you treated me like a normal person rather than focusing on titles or protocol. That I enjoyed talking with you more than I've enjoyed a conversation in a long time." The sincerity in his voice made Kate's heart race. Prince William wasn't just being polite or engaging in a casual flirtation. He was expressing genuine feelings and considering their relationship within the context of his broader life and responsibilities. "I have to ask," Kate said carefully, "how do relationships work in your circumstances? I assume there are expectations and considerations that don't apply to most people." Prince William set down his fork and leaned back in his chair, considering how to answer honestly without overwhelming her with the complexity of royal obligations. "You're right that there are unique complications. Any serious relationship I pursue will eventually become public knowledge, which means the other person's privacy and normal life will be significantly affected. My family and advisors have opinions about appropriate partnerships, though ultimately the choice is mine. And there are practical considerations about how a relationship would work given my duties and travel schedule." "That sounds incredibly difficult to navigate," Kate said softly. "It can be. But, Kate, I want you to know that despite these complications, I'm genuinely interested in exploring what might develop between us." Tuesday evening wasn't just a pleasant conversation for me. It felt like meeting someone I could build something meaningful with. The directness of his statement took Kate's breath away. Prince William was essentially saying that he was considering her as a potential serious partner, not just enjoying her company for casual dates. "I feel the same way," she replied honestly. "But I also want to be realistic about what this relationship might cost. My life has always been private and ordinary. The thought of constant media attention and public scrutiny is frightening. I understand those concerns, and I won't pretend the adjustment would be easy. But I also think you're stronger than you realize, and there are ways to maintain some privacy and normalcy even within royal circumstances." They talked late into the evening about practical considerations, shared values, and hopes for the future. Kate learned about the causes Prince William was most passionate about supporting, his thoughts about modernizing royal traditions, and his desire to make a genuine difference in the world. Prince William discovered Kate's interest in art therapy for disadvantaged children, her love of outdoor activities, and her close relationships with family and longtime friends. By the time Prince William's driver arrived to take Kate home, they had established the foundation for something that felt like a real relationship rather than an exciting but temporary adventure. Prince William walked her to the car, and before she got in, he took her hand gently. "Kate, I know this is all happening quickly, and I don't want to pressure you into anything. But I'd very much like to continue seeing you, if you're willing to navigate the complications together. I'm willing, Kate replied, surprised by her own certainty. This feels right in a way that I can't entirely explain. Prince William smiled and leaned down to kiss her cheek softly. I'll call you soon. And Kate, thank you for being brave enough to give this a chance. During the drive home, Kate reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 week. 7 days ago, she had been a completely unknown university graduate working part-time in retail. Tonight, she had shared dinner with the future King of England in his private home, and they had essentially agreed to pursue a serious romantic relationship. The magnitude of what she was stepping into felt overwhelming when she considered it directly. But when she focused on Prince William himself, his kindness, intelligence, and genuine interest in making the world better, the decision felt natural and right. Over the next several weeks, Kate and Prince William began carefully building their relationship within the constraints of his royal obligations and security requirements. They had dinner at his flat, took long walks in private areas of royal estates, and spent quiet evenings talking about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. Kate met some of Prince William's closest friends, who welcomed her warmly and seemed genuinely pleased by how happy she made him. Prince William, in turn, was introduced to Kate's university friends and, eventually, her family, who were initially overwhelmed by his identity, but quickly came to appreciate his down-to-earth personality and obvious affection for their daughter. The media attention that Kate had feared gradually materialized, but it developed slowly enough that she was able to adjust progressively to increased visibility. Prince William's press office helped protect her privacy during the early stages of their relationship, and his guidance helped her understand how to navigate public situations with confidence and grace. 3 months after their first meeting at the Royal Geographic Society banquet, Kate and Prince William traveled together to Scotland for a weekend at Balmoral, where she met his grandmother and other family members in an informal setting. The visit was a success, with Kate's natural warmth and genuine interest in others making a positive impression on everyone she encountered. As Kate stood on the Scottish moors beside Prince William, watching the sunset paint the landscape in brilliant oranges and purples, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. A simple stumble at a charity banquet had led to the most meaningful relationship of her life, and opened doors to experiences she never could have imagined. Are you happy? Prince William asked, following her gaze across the beautiful countryside. Completely, Kate replied, taking his hand. Even with all the complications and adjustments, I can't imagine being anywhere else. Prince William squeezed her hand gently. I love you, Kate Middleton. I love you too, she replied, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The girl who had once worried about wearing the right dress to a charity banquet had found something far more valuable than social acceptance. She had found her perfect partner, and her path toward a life of meaningful purpose. 2 years had passed since that transformative evening at the Royal Geographic Society, and Kate's life had evolved in ways she never could have anticipated. What had begun as a chance meeting at a charity banquet had developed into a deep, committed relationship that had weathered public scrutiny, family pressures, and the complex demands of royal protocol. Kate had gradually transitioned from her part-time position at Jigsaw to working with several charitable organizations focused on children's welfare and art education. Prince William's guidance had helped her understand how to leverage her growing public profile to support causes she genuinely cared about, while his family's resources had provided opportunities to make a meaningful impact on issues close to her heart. The media attention that had seemed so terrifying initially had become manageable through careful planning and the support of experienced royal press officers. Kate had learned to navigate public appearances with confidence, understanding how to present herself authentically while respecting the dignity and traditions associated with royal engagements. On a crisp October morning, Kate was reviewing applications for a new art therapy program she was helping to establish in London schools when her phone rang. Prince William was calling from his military training, something he did every day when their schedules allowed for private conversations. How is the advanced helicopter course going? Kate asked, settling into the comfortable chair by her flat's window where she liked to take his calls. Challenging, but fascinating. I'm learning to appreciate how much skill and courage it requires to conduct rescue operations in dangerous conditions. The instructors are pushing us hard, but I understand why. People's lives will depend on our competence. Prince William had decided to pursue military service as both a continuation of royal tradition and a way to develop practical skills that would serve him well in his future role. His decision to train as a search and rescue pilot reflected his desire to contribute meaningfully to society beyond ceremonial duties. "I'm proud of you for choosing such demanding service," Kate said. "It can't be easy to balance military training with royal obligations. Actually, the military environment provides a welcome break from royal protocol. My fellow officers treat me as an equal, and the work itself is too important to allow for special treatment or shortcuts." They talked about his training experiences, Kate's charitable projects, and their plans for the upcoming weekend. Prince William would be returning to London for a brief leave, and they were looking forward to spending quiet time together at his flat before attending a formal dinner at one of his family's residences. "Kate," Prince William said as their conversation was drawing to a close, "there's something I want to discuss with you this weekend. Something important that I've been thinking about for quite some time." The seriousness in his tone made Kate's pulse quicken. After 2 years together, she had learned to recognize when Prince William was grappling with significant decisions or concerns. "Of course. Is everything all right?" "Everything is more than all right," he assured her quickly. "I just want to have an important conversation about our future, and it should be done in person." That afternoon, Kate found herself distracted during a meeting with representatives from the Children's Hospital where her art therapy program would be implemented. While she managed to participate productively in discussions about funding and logistics, part of her mind kept returning to Prince William's words and the weight of emotion she had heard in his voice. By Friday evening, when Prince William's car arrived to collect her for dinner at his flat, Kate was both excited and nervous about whatever conversation he wanted to have. She had dressed carefully in a simple black dress and the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her, wanting to look beautiful, but not overdressed for what might be a casual evening. Prince William greeted her at the door with an embrace that lasted longer than usual and a kiss that seemed to carry additional tenderness. He looked tired from his intensive training, but happy to be home, and Kate felt the familiar warmth of being with someone who truly understood and appreciated her. "I've missed you terribly," he said, helping her with her coat. "The flat feels empty when you're not here." They had developed their own comfortable routines during the time they had been together. Kate often stayed at Prince William's flat on weekends, and he had gradually accumulated small touches that reflected her presence. Books she enjoyed on his shelves, her favorite tea in his kitchen, photographs of them together displayed alongside his family pictures. Prince William had prepared a more elaborate dinner than usual. Her favorite salmon dish, vegetables from the organic garden at one of his family's estates, and a bottle of wine they had shared during a memorable evening in Scotland. The effort he had put into the meal suggested that tonight was indeed special. As they ate, Prince William seemed slightly nervous, which was unusual for him. Kate had grown accustomed to his natural confidence and ease in most situations, so his apparent anxiety made her increasingly curious about what he wanted to discuss. "Tell me about your week," Prince William said, apparently wanting to ease into whatever serious conversation he had planned. "How did the meeting with the hospital administrators go?" Kate described the progress on her art therapy initiative, sharing her excitement about the potential to help children process difficult emotions through creative expression. Prince William listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and offering suggestions based on his own charitable work. "I'm constantly impressed by your ability to identify meaningful ways to help people," he said. "You have a natural instinct for finding solutions that address real needs rather than just creating good publicity." "I learned that from watching you," Kate replied. "You've taught me that public platform comes with responsibility to use it wisely." After dinner, they settled on the sofa with glasses of wine, and Prince William took Kate's hands in his. His expression was serious, but warm, and Kate could see that he was gathering courage for whatever he wanted to say. "Kate, these past 2 years have been the happiest of my life. You've changed everything for me, how I see my role, my responsibilities, my future. Before I met you, duty felt like a burden I had to bear alone. Now it feels like something we can embrace together as a partnership." Kate's heart was beating so fast she was sure Prince William could hear it. His words seemed to be leading toward the conversation she had both hoped for and feared since their relationship had become serious. "You've changed everything for me too," she replied. "I never imagined I could love someone as deeply as I love you, or that I could find such purpose in supporting causes that matter." "Kate," Prince William continued, his voice becoming more emotional, "I want to spend my life with you. I want us to build a future together, to support each other through whatever challenges we face, to create a family and a partnership that honors both tradition and our own values." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning engagement ring. The center stone was a brilliant sapphire surrounded by diamonds, and Kate immediately recognized it as the ring Prince William's mother had worn. "This was my mother's engagement ring," Prince William explained. "I've been carrying it with me for weeks, waiting for the right moment to ask if you'll marry me. Kate Middleton, will you be my wife?" Kate stared at the ring through tears that had begun flowing the moment she saw it. Prince William was proposing with his mother's ring, connecting their future to his family's history, and offering Kate the ultimate symbol of acceptance and love. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." Prince William slipped the ring onto her finger with slightly trembling hands, and then they were kissing and laughing and crying all at the same time. The weight of the ring felt significant, but right, a physical reminder of the commitment they were making to each other and the life they would build together. "I can't believe this is really happening," Kate said, admiring how perfectly the ring fit and how beautiful it looked on her hand. "I knew I wanted to marry you within months of our first meeting," Prince William admitted. "But I wanted to be sure you were ready for everything this decision involves. Marriage to me means accepting a life of public service, constant scrutiny, and responsibilities that most people never have to consider. I've learned so much about that life over the past 2 years, and while it can be challenging, it's also incredibly meaningful. The thought of facing those responsibilities alone would be overwhelming, but facing them with you feels manageable and even exciting." They spent hours that evening discussing their engagement, their wedding plans, and their hopes for their marriage. Prince William explained the process of announcing their engagement publicly and the various protocols that would need to be followed. Kate shared her thoughts about how to balance her own charitable interests with the royal duties she would inherit. "When should we tell our families?" Kate asked, suddenly, realizing that this decision would affect many people beyond themselves. "I'd like to call my father and grandmother tonight, if you're comfortable with that. And we should arrange for you to share the news with your parents in person tomorrow." The prospect of telling her family was both exciting and nerve-wracking for Kate. While her parents had grown to love Prince William over the years they had known him, the reality of their daughter marrying into the royal family would still be overwhelming to process. Prince William made his calls to the royal family that evening, and Kate was touched by the warmth and joy in their responses. His grandmother was particularly pleased, expressing her happiness that Prince William had found someone who brought out the best in him while understanding the importance of duty and service. The next day, they drove to Berkshire to share the news with Kate's family in person. Michael and Carol Middleton were initially stunned into silence, then overwhelmed with happiness for their daughter. The afternoon was filled with celebration, tears, family stories, and practical discussions about wedding planning and the changes that would come with Kate's new role. "We're so proud of you," Kate's mother said, embracing her daughter tightly. "You've grown into such a remarkable woman, and it's clear that you and William are perfect partners for each other." Over the following weeks, as their engagement was announced publicly and wedding plans began in earnest, Kate reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. A charity banquet stumble that had seemed mortifying at the time had led to the greatest love story of her life. The girl who had once worried about wearing the right dress to fit in with London society had discovered that authenticity and kindness were more valuable than any social credentials. The relationship that had begun with Prince William catching her when she fell had evolved into a partnership where they caught each other through every challenge and celebrated each other's triumphs. Standing in the gardens at Clarence House during their official engagement photo shoot, Kate gazed at the sapphire ring sparkling on her finger and felt overwhelming gratitude for the path her life had taken. She was about to marry her best friend and the love of her life, while gaining the opportunity to dedicate herself to causes that could make a real difference in the world. Prince William squeezed her hand as the photographer prepared for another shot. "Any regrets?" he asked with a teasing smile. Kate looked at the man who had seen her at her most vulnerable moment and had responded with nothing but kindness and care. She thought about the love they had built together, the challenges they had overcome, and the bright future stretching ahead of them. "Not a single one," she replied, meaning every word. As the camera captured their happiness, Kate knew that whatever the future held, royal duties, public scrutiny, the joys and challenges of building a family, they would face it all together. The stumble that had brought them together had been the first step toward a love story that would last a lifetime. Their wedding day dawned bright and clear, with crowds of well-wishers lining the streets to celebrate a love story that had captured hearts around the world. As Kate walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey in her grandmother's lace veil and a gown that honored both tradition and her personal style, she saw Prince William waiting for her with tears of joy in his eyes. When they exchanged vows, promising to love, honor, and cherish each other through all of life's adventures, Kate thought about Professor Whitfield's words from that long-ago evening at the Royal Geographic Society. The real courage lay not in facing physical dangers, but in maintaining hope when everything seemed impossible. Their love had required courage, the courage to trust in something beautiful despite its complexity, to believe in each other despite the obstacles, and to choose hope over fear at every turn. As they kissed as husband and wife, Kate knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them, and she couldn't wait to discover them together. The future queen had found her king, not through calculation or ambition, but through a simple stumble that had led straight to her destiny. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin not with grand gestures, but with small moments of grace when two hearts recognize that they have found their home in each other.